Welcome, my 41 subscribers, and everyone who believes in miracles, because a miracle happened tonight in the six-man tag team match, and I'll talk about that later. Welcome to my review of AEW Dynamite, Blood and Guts 2 for the June 29th episode of Dynamite. Let's begin. So the show begins with Orange Cassidy versus Ethan Page. So Orange Cassidy, fresh from his loss against Will Ospreay, gets gifted a new theme song, or like his old theme song from the Indies. So now he has two pieces of licensed music under his name. So that's Where Is My Mind by the Pixies and Jane by Jefferson Starship. And I think Where Is My Mind is a lot better. This was a mistake. So yeah, this match begins with a lot of negotiations because Dan Lambert managed to negotiate using technicalities his way around having the best friends in Orange's corner. He cites like a manager's license that the best friends of course don't have, so they're asked to leave by Bryce Remsburg. So Orange and Ethan have like this match that I would describe to be the most ideal TV match that preserves one's body as a wrestler. Because there was a lot of playing up to the crowd and not much crazy stuff or like high speed, high impact stuff like with his match against Will Ospreay. And I was okay with it because the way the heels play up to the crowd here, the way they mock Orange Cassidy, adds to the whole story of the match, which is Lambert basically said it, and they keep referencing it throughout the match, that Orange Cassidy is small, while Ethan Page is a legit heavyweight. But I don't know about that. Like, I can believe that Ethan Page is a heavyweight, but he's kind of like barely a heavyweight. He also doesn't have the physique that like proper heavyweights have. So yeah, but we get this awesome line where Dan Lambert just like says while his voice breaks. He says the line, and I quote, "Finish this guy. He looks like he's 12 years old." So Orange goes for like a scoop slam at the start and then fail. But then we get like a Chekhov moment where he finally completes it at the end. So yeah, as for their performances, it's basically what you'd expect from Orange Cassidy. He does his usual stuff like the hands in the pockets, the soft punches and kicks that is used as like psychological warfare, and he uses his arsenal of like cruiserweight moves. And as for Ethan Page, he is the most regular wrestler type I've seen in the roster. Even in his last match against Miro, he wrestles this like regular but like entertainer style, and he really likes to work the crowd. I know I've said that he is like my number one MJF replacement, but I need to see more from him in ring. He needs to wrestle like a main event level, like storyline match, or something like a G1 type high intensity match. And all I've seen from him is just like TV quality matches. So I only have two spots of the match, and number one is where Page throws Orange out of the ring, and then Lambert mocks him with the like soft kicks that Orange does. And I found this pretty funny. Dan Lambert is entertaining when he doesn't try to be needlessly offensive. And then the number one spot in the match is the finish. It starts with Orange telegraphing the Orange Punch by removing his pads. And then this is followed by Dan Lambert trying to distract him, giving Page enough time to stand up. But then Orange does like the lazy punches. And then he gets Lambert to blink. He gets him to panic. And then Orange takes the bottle of orange juice. He takes a swig from it, gives it back. He delivers an orange punch to Ethan Page, which gets him loopy. It doesn't finish him right off. I think it's because he's a heavyweight, quote unquote. And then Orange just missed Dan Lambert in the face with the juice. And then he delivers another orange punch. And finally, the Chekhov moment, scoop slam, and gets the win. So yeah, for a TV match, this was alright. This could have been the main event of a minor show. More Rampage than it is Dynamite. But it does well to open up the show and reintroduces the best friends. So after the match, Chuck and Trent hug Orange with the Okada camera, and things are as they should be again. So yeah, it's nice to see Orange Cassidy get a win. It's nice to see Ethan Page get some TV time even if he loses. And it's fucking awesome to see the best friends back together with like crazy outfits. It's like they're hippies from the 60s. And it's nice to see that Chuck Taylor isn't released, that the rumors were false, or maybe he just accepted his like per appearance deal. But yeah, nice to see Chuck Taylor back in AEW. So after this, we get like a promo by Christian Cage on stage before the next match that happens right after. So yeah, Christian Cage is asked to apologize for what he said about Jungle Boy Jack Perry's family. And just from the start, he gets booed to shit. Because what he said last week was just like so below the belt. And so like real that I'm surprised it was actually allowed to air. But yeah, Christian Cage right here, after the booing from the fans, he just twists the knife even more. He doubles down on insulting his father. And then he just adds, "I'm sorry that your entire family isn't dead, except for his mom." And then he makes the like call me sign, and yeah. This might be like cheap and below the belt and stuff, but this is exactly what we've been missing in wrestling. So yeah, I'm happy that Christian Cage is playing this character. And then he presents the dude who's actually going to have the match, and it's Luchasaurus. Like this evil version of Luchasaurus. He enters with like Kane-esque pyro, this like weird music that I can't hear over the pyro. So I can't really judge it. So wait, I'm gonna listen to it first on YouTube and then I'll be right back. So yeah, I'm back. And it kind of sounds like Dark Lord or like a horror type music. The accompanying Titantron is also a bit like horror vibey. And yeah, it's like alright for Luchasaurus. Maybe we need some time to like get used to it. But it is a bit caney. I read that a lot on the fight chat that they said Luchasaurus is kind of like a ripoff of Kane now, but come on, give him a chance. But the match he had with Serpentico is not that chance because it was basically a squash. He does like a lot more grounded moves, but it's still like exciting enough that you can feel that Luchasaurus is still there. And here he finishes the match with like a snare trap with the nerve hold, and it's not the most spectacular looking of moves, but good thing it doesn't look like this is going to be his finisher, because his finisher turns out to be a chokeslam, which he does on Serpentico on the outside. And yeah, this is an alright enough finisher, but this just adds fuel to the fire that Luchasaurus is like a Kane ripoff. So yeah. But again, let's give this guy a chance. Let him find his own identity without Jurassic Express. And so after this, we get this backstage like promo battle between Scorpio Sky and Wardlow. And these guys here deliver pretty good promos because Scorpio Sky sounds like a wrestler's wrestler. He delivers like a charismatic promo. But Wardlow sounds like he's just sick of all the bullshit. He just wants to have his match. And so bring all your boys so you can throw all of your shenanigans at me, but I'm still gonna kick your ass. That is basically Wardlow's vibe. And so Scorp challenges him to a street fight. So yeah, I don't expect Scorp to retain, especially because it's like a street fight. Wardlow's gonna kill all of them just like he killed all of the security guards. So yeah, I don't know how this feud is gonna be prolonged. But yeah, that title is as good as Wardlow's. And I don't know if I like it that much because Wardlow has been built too strong that he's expected to destroy his opponents in like a matter of minutes. Unless it's like Miro. And I don't feel like Wardlow should be destroying any faction or any top tier wrestler right now. I want Scorp and the Men of the Year to like exhaust all of their resources to be able to prolong the feud to the next pay-per-view. Because Scorp's title reign doesn't feel complete. He feels like a transitional champion, to be honest. And the TNT title is supposed to be the workhorse title, and I don't know if Wardlow has shown to be a workhorse, but we'll see when he wins it. And plus we have the All-Atlantic Championship to be the new workhorse title, and then Pac has it, who is a proven workhorse and is capable of delivering great matches every time. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe the TNT title will be like a 5-minute title defense title that will be defended on every Dynamite. Or on Rampage, because it's TNT and Dynamite is on TBS. So the next match is Max Caster and the Ass Boys versus Danhausen and FTR. So the Acclaimed and the Ass Boys do their usual entrance. Max Caster's raps are must watch / must listen every time. They all just like hit now. And this time he says the awesome line, "Why are gonna cheer a white boy doing whiteface?" But this gets no reaction from the crowd. For me, this was like his best line of the entire rap. But the crowd reacted more to when he referenced the water in Flint. And I don't get it. The only thing I know from Flint, Michigan is the Flint City Tropics owned by Jackie Moon. But then I googled tap water in Flint, Michigan, and holy shit, that's fucking dirty water. But it still doesn't hit for me as much as it does like the locals of Michigan. So yeah, sorry. And when Max passes the mic to the Ass Boys, they don't take it. They don't do the thing where they say the wrong name of the city. Feels like there's a bit of like friction in the team, even if Max Caster like defended them. But this is like a weird thing to be mad about because the Ass Boys are pissed that they're being called the Ass Boys. And you know, I thought they got over this because we had like very, very loud Ass Boys chants for like a couple of weeks and they didn't get angry because of that. They just show their disdain for the Ass Boys name in like shoot interviews, but not on the show. And if I remember correctly, Max Caster has been calling them the Ass Boys for a couple of weeks. So this like thing doesn't make sense, but the Ass Boys have been portrayed as like pretty dumb and shallow. So this might be a part of their character. So the story of the match is that Danhausen is the anchor of his team. So for the majority of the match, when Danhausen was in the ring, that's the only time the Ass Boys or Max Caster could do any damage to anyone. Because FTR are like tiers above their opponents. They have 3 sets of tag team championships, so they shouldn't be selling to them. But yeah, even with this condition, they still told a good story with the Ass Boys and Max Caster beating up Danhausen for like 90% of the match. I also like that commentary justified this by saying that Danhausen, even though he has his tricks, he is lighter than the Ass Boys and Max Caster. So his HP and his resistance isn't really that high. So now I'm gonna talk about the spots of the match. And there's only 2. Because number 2 is the stereo multiple German suplexes by FTR. Cash does about 3. And then Dax does 6. And I like how they just don't end at the same time. One does more than the other. And I think I've had too much of these for the past few days. So yeah, and then the number 1 spot in the match is the Miracle of Detroit, Michigan. So this starts when Danhausen does like his curse thing on Austin Gunn. And then he does the GTS taunt. And then he sets him up for the GTS. But then Anthony Bowens gets in the ring. He's able to stand. He's healed from his injuries. This is a miracle. Mein Führer! I can walk! That is a reference to Doctor Strangelove by Stanley Kubrick. Go watch it. So Anthony Bowens is holding his crutch. Danhausen drops Austin Gunn, and then he curses Anthony Bowens. This pisses Bowens off, and then he charges with the crutch, but hits Austin Gunn because Danhausen just sneakily dodges away. So Dax pulls Bowens out of the ring, and then Danhausen uses this to pin Austin Gunn and then get another win. Another pinfall victory over somebody. So this is like the typical TV match, similar to the first one where this is a career preserver, it's a storyteller, and we get a lot of shenanigans. But this one works a lot more because at this point in time, the Ass Boys and the Acclaimed are like super over. And having the reveal that Anthony Bowens is okay now, he can wrestle finally, it's a miracle, just elevates this match to a guaranteed minor show or TV main event. Again, just like the first match, this could main event, this time I think a Dynamite. And so we get some storylines here where the Acclaimed and the Ass Boys with Billy Gunn look like they're about to break up. It starts with some friction, but then it turns into a fucking eruption when Billy Gunn shoves his own son Austin down, the victim of this entire match. Austin literally did nothing wrong. And this gets a great reaction from the crowd because Billy Gunn just picked the Acclaimed over his flesh and blood. He is like an ancient Chinese warlord who chooses to reward his men over his family in order to look better to other people. He is like Cao Cao, basically. This just turned into one of the hottest storylines in the entire company, and this is amazing. And they don't even have championships, and they've been appearing on Dark a lot, and they haven't won like any matches. This just turned into like an amazing lower card storyline. That if you do the right things, if you don't commit any mistakes, will elevate these guys to the mid card effectively. I think this is the feud that's gonna like push the Gun Club up the card and make them contenders for the tag team championships. So yeah, good match, but an even better post-match segment. And again, this is a minor show or a TV main event caliber match. And yeah, one more thing, FTR. Why the fuck would you destroy a perfectly good wheelchair and a perfectly good crutch? Other people could be using that. It's just like how Daisuke Sasaki destroyed the bike in Cyberfight. It annoyed me, and this annoys me too. So yeah. And then after this, we get a video promo from the trio of Sonjay Dutt, Satnam Singh, and Jay Lethal, where they set the date for Jay Lethal's match for the ROH Television Championship. And again, as usual, Sonjay Dutt, great on the mic, even if he talks really fast. Jay Lethal, also very charismatic. And then Satnam Singh, he's actually really good on the mic for what he's been allowed to say. What a great monster voice. So this gets me excited for Death Before Dishonor, but I don't know if I'm gonna have the time to review that. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see, but hopefully I can make a review of that. Just not as many frames as the usual reviews that I do. So the next match is for the TBS Championship. This is Jade Cargill versus Leila Grey. So Leila Grey I've never seen before, and Jade Cargill, she's the TBS champion. She's who everyone thinks should be the women's champion, but I say give it a year. She is just not there yet when it comes to in-ring. I mean, she's improved, but she's no Thunder Rosa, she's no Athena, she's no Four Horsewomen. She's just not there yet. She's more suited in these short squash matches rather than like prolonged ones. Her match against Anna Jay is like the prime example of that. They're in like the same level in ring, but Jade is just like better when it comes to outside the ring. But come on, this is not the WWE. You should be putting the titles on the women who can wrestle as well as cut promos. You have Chris Statlander right there. Ruby Soho is right there. Hikaru Shida Riho, Yuka Sakazaki, who had a fucking amazing match on Cyberfight. They're all just right there for you to use. Remove your WWE stained glasses and forget all of the standards they set on what a wrestler should look like. Because this is AEW. So Tony, cut the shit. But instead we have a TBS title match that's like 3 minutes long and is basically a squash. So there are no spots in the match. Jade hits her finisher and then she wins. But as for the post-match promo, Jade doesn't do as well as she usually does. She's a bit gassed, so she underperforms, but yeah, this is excusable. This happened to Britt Baker once, and I understand. No minus points here. People get tired, and this is understandable. As for the content, they call out Athena and Chris Statlander, and they almost beat the shit out of Jade. Athena went up to the top turnbuckle and then she was about to eclipse her. This is the most vulnerable I've seen Jade for a while. But then Leila Grey pushes Athena off and then saves Jade's ass. You know what? I fucking love this part. They almost got the bad guy, but she just narrowly escapes because someone decides to help her out. And then Stokely offers his hand, tries to invite her in the faction, but Jade gets pissy and then breaks this up. Come on, you better be thankful. She saved your ass. This is like free help. Why not take it? So yeah, great storytelling. I love what this is building up to, but come on, Jade, just accept her in the faction. Come on. So before we get to the Blood and Guts match, we have one more final segment. And this is a backstage promo by the Young Bucks, where they cite everyone who's injured. They're basically alone now, plus Bobby Fish, and of course Brandon Cutler and their belts. They say this, again, in a very entertaining way. The Young Bucks are very entertaining promos, and they plug their match against Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi on Rampage. So against Bishamon. Young Bucks versus Bishamon on Rampage. And then after this, we get a hype-up video for the Blood and Guts match. We have Ruby Soho, Excalibur, and Dean Malenko pushing the story as well as promoting the Blood and Guts match. So Excalibur and Dean Malenko hype up the Blood and Guts, while Ruby explains the story between Kingston and Claudio. So yeah, well done pre-recorded video segment. Does well to hype up the match. And this isn't the last we'll see of Ruby tonight. And then finally, for the main event, Blood and Guts. This was just mayhem and chaos and carnage. They managed to do like war games and Hell in a Cell almost like, because the cages do have a roof. And so they managed to call back to the 1998 Hell in a Cell match. Find out how later. And yeah, this is like 5 stars. So if you don't want to be spoiled, don't watch this. Go watch that first. But if you already watched that, welcome to my review of the actual Blood and Guts match, because that match was so fucking good that it deserves another intro. We get an hour allocated for this. They all make their entrances. We even get like a commercial break. And this lasts for about 10 minutes. And then the match starts. So the match starts with Claudio against Sammy Guevara. So I've never reviewed a multi-stage match before, so maybe I'll just review it stage by stage. So this starts very rough when Claudio and Sammy meet in between the two rings, and then Sammy just like climbs on Claudio's back but then is rolled off, and then he lands very, very badly in between the two rings. And shit, this happens again when Claudio throws him from one ring to another. And then something like this again happens when Sammy climbs up the side of the cage, Claudio follows, and then Claudio like throws him down to the ropes where Sammy's leg gets tied up on one of the ropes. And I think this could have caused an injury if it landed just a little bit badly. But thank God it didn't. That's gonna happen later. So we get an honorable mention here for like spot of the match. It's very physically impressive, but there's not much of a purpose here other than to look cool. So it's an honorable mention. So for the second phase of the match, I like how they structure this where the heels will always have a point where they have more people than the good guys. But no one can end the match unless everyone is in. This part here happened during a commercial break, but it's still playing on Fight, so nothing really much happens until Wheeler Yuta comes in. So Wheeler Yuta comes in like a house of fire, and then we get another candidate for top 3 spots of the match. It's when he does like multiple German suplexes, but it's shared between Garcia and Guevara. He manages to do like 4 on Garcia and then like about 3 to Guevara. But that last one was paired with a European uppercut by Claudio. And then for phase 3 of the match is when Jake Hager enters. And we get like a sort of brain fart moment here because Jake is just like running slowly. He's like jogging towards Wheeler Yuta, who's like on the turnbuckle. And then he takes a bit of time because he has to go through like 2 sets of ropes to get to the ring where Wheeler is at. This was a bit of a fail because Wheeler was like up there for like a couple of seconds. And what made it like a brain fart moment is when Claudio just looks at Hager as he's making his way to Wheeler. He's not even attempting to help. He goes to the other ring. He doesn't help his teammate and then he just attacks Garcia. But then we get this cool spot that's not good enough to be a spot in the match, but it's when Hager throws Wheeler to Claudio's side and then Wheeler throws Garcia on Hager's side. And then we have this awesome stare down where 2 guys from the same faction back in the other company, I think they were called the Real Americans. I wasn't really watching when they were at their peak. I just watched like highlight videos. I got to the part where Hager teamed up with Del Rio, and that was it. But great moment, great callback. We had chance of We the People, and yeah, that happened. And just like the previous phase, phase 3 becomes better when the BCC competitor comes in. And this time it's Mox. He has 2 chairs. He like throws chairs at people. He destroys the shit out of Daniel Garcia. He makes him bleed with a fork. And then on commentary, Regal is just like having an orgasm. He's just enjoying the shit out of this. And yeah, this was really good. And then BCC just take control of the match, even going into the next phase. So phase 4 starts where Angelo Parker, arguably the weakest member of JAS, he enters. And then Mox, Claudio, and Wheeler are just standing right there. All of Parker's teammates are down. And like Garcia's bleeding on the side. So Parker runs away. And then he manages to do this in a very effective fashion. Like, given that the ropes are like hindering people's mobility, Parker can really run away. Candidate for spot of the match. But eventually, he can't run away forever. He gets beaten up. But then, JAS retake control. And then they dish out a decent amount of revenge. But not as like entertaining as what BCC did. So eventually, it's time for Ortiz's turn to come in. And then, 1000 IQ move by Cool Hand Ange. He blocks the door. And then, it takes a little bit of time for Ortiz to come in, but he eventually does. But if conditions were better and if he was well backed up, I believe this would have like worked like a charm. But instead, Ortiz manages to get a decent amount of offense off. And then he delivers like an awkward powerbomb to Sammy Guevara. And then we get a very strong candidate for spot in the match. I think this is guaranteed to be top 3 because Mox pours broken glass on the side of the right side ring, the one that's further away from the stage. And then he pile drivers Ange on it. He pile drivers an already bleeding Ange on the glass. So I guess Ange bladed before. But it would have been better if the camera was pointed away so that it will create an effect that the glass actually cut Ange. This would have been more impactful. And then Mox, wanting more blood, Korn would be proud. He cuts Jake Hager with a piece of broken glass. And I think this is like actual blading on the spot. And then for phase 5, Daddy Magic comes in and then he destroys all of BCC. He is the catalyst for making Moxley bleed, or at least reopening his cut from Forbidden Door, as the commentator said. But yeah, for the first part of this, before Santana came in, this was all JAS. But then Santana came in, they reestablished control, and then he brings in a table. And then we get another candidate for spots in the match. It's when Mox used some skewers, so like some barbecue sticks, on Daddy Magic's head. And he pounds the sticks in. It looks gruesome, but it would have been cooler to like put glue there and then make it stick on his head. That would have looked cooler. But then Santana, who brought the table in, unfortunately isn't able to use it because he injures his leg as he's doing a backbreaker. So for the remainder of the match, he just rolls to the side and then he like takes a nap there. And this is unfortunate. We've already had a lot of injuries, and this one to an awesome tag team in a major storyline is a big blow. Because Danielson's out too. So yeah, Santana, get well soon. Such a shit accident here. He barely even had time in the match. So yeah. So then the last person enters the ring, Eddie Kingston for BCC. So this is phase 6 of the match. This is where a victory can happen. And Eddie just walks casually, hitting people with kendo sticks as he makes his way to Jericho. And then he manages to make it there, and then he beats the shit out of Jericho with a kendo stick. And then he grabs rubbing alcohol, and I don't know what this is for. I mean, if I were in a wrestling match, I would use rubbing alcohol on someone's cuts to make it more painful. But Chris Jericho does not have any cuts yet, so this is strange. And then it gets hard to explain what's going on because shit is just going on all over the ring. The fans start chanting, "This is awesome," and it is awesome indeed. And then the table finally gets used when Claudio and Ortiz slam Hager into it, but he is parallel to the table and then he lands that way. It's like he's on a chair or something. He's stuck in like a V position. And then after this is another candidate for spot in the match. This happens at the same time. Like, Wheeler and Mox pour tacks on the other ring, while Claudio is pulling off like the protective surface of the other ring, exposing the wood under. And then shit, Mox just slams Matt Menard. I forgot the name of this move. It looks like a sort of suplex drop or something, but he does this to Menard, and then he lands on the tacks. And then we get this nice, like, story moment where, like, Sammy does a Hurricane Rana on Claudio while Eddie is taking the ring apart. But then Eddie just ignores it. He just lets it happen. It's fucking great. And then we get another candidate for spot in the match. Angelo Parker is trying to escape after all the shit he's been through. He tries to escape and then he uses like the connector to both of the cages, so it's the thickest part. You can climb that the best. But then Wheeler just kicks him off and then he's left hanging, bloody, and upside down. This is gonna be the thumbnail of this video. This is amazing. Then finally, Jericho uses the rubbing alcohol on Mox's cut. This is exactly how I would use it. This should have been on a pay-per-view. My god. And then again, synchronously, Ortiz and Kingston do a double superplex on Sammy Guevara on like the exposed part of the ring. But Sammy lands on the padded side, and then Ortiz and Kingston land on the exposed side. And while this is happening, Mox is bulldog choking Matt Menard. like on the tacks. And then Jericho Judas effects Mox on the tacks. And then he rubs the tacks on his face. What's happening? And then we get another "This is awesome" chant. And then Jericho DDTs him on the tacks after escaping from a possible Death Rider or Paradigm Shift, whatever. Then, of course, as he does this, he lands on the tacks himself because it's a fucking DDT. And then he fucking drags Mox on the tacks. And this culminates in a Walls of Jericho on the fucking tacks. I can't take it anymore. Candidate for spots of the match. And then finally, Kingston gets his hands on Jericho proper when he saves Mox by taking some tacks and then smashing it on Jericho's face. But we don't see any on his face. I think Kingston just kept it in a ball and made it look like he did. But then I heard that Eddie has a back problem coming in, so we see it here. So he isn't very mobile in the match. So the way he sells the fire extinguisher that Jericho does is a bit meh. And then phase 7 of the match that includes the finish. Tay Conti opens up the door to the cage, and then she's attacked by Ruby Soho. So I smell a feud. And then Jericho makes his way up the cages. Something we don't see anymore in any of the Hell in a Cell matches or in any of the War Games. And Eddie Kingston, who wants Jericho's blood, follows, but again, injured back. I can't imagine how he managed to do this. So Eddie and Jericho fight. Sammy follows and saves Jericho. And then the commentators reference Hell in a Cell 1998 between Mankind and The Undertaker. So they foreshadow a moment like this. And then it happens. Guaranteed a top 3 spot in the match. Eddie throws Sammy Guevara to the timekeeper's table. And then he's just taken out of the match. There's some water on the table, so for added effect, it gets spilled all over Sammy and he's just done. Sammy is dead. And then Kingston from atop the cage, the crazy fucker that he is, he laughs and smiles about it. We go to commercial, but on Fight, shit is still happening. It's still going. Everyone just takes a nap, and we get a lot of shots of Sammy. God, this should have been on a pay-per-view. Because I'm scared that if this doesn't get the ratings, if this doesn't get 1 million viewers, people are gonna call this a failure, but I don't believe this. Great fucking match, and I think it's better than Anarchy in the Arena. So Jericho and Kingston have this fight atop the stage. It's more of a strike battle, and they're a bit of scared to walk on the surface of the top. I mean, I would be. These guys are both scared of heights. And then we get a great piece of storytelling where Chris Jericho does the Walls of Jericho on Eddie, who has an injured back, on top of the cage, but then Claudio comes up and saves his ass. And then we get a spot that pushes back the pile driver on the glass. Because this one is where Claudio does a giant swing on Chris Jericho on top of the cage. He does 7 and then he attempts the sharpshooter. And then we get the finish. So Matt Menard, the guy who's going to be giving up, he climbs up the cage and then he saves Jericho from the sharpshooter. But then, at the same time, Kingston does a dragon sleeper on Jericho, and then Claudio does a sharpshooter on Menard. And then great storytelling moment when Menard taps out first and Jericho doesn't, but Kingston's pissed. He didn't get the win. He didn't get the revenge. Claudio did. And then Eddie's like, "What you doing?" And then Claudio's like, "We won!" But Kingston just stays seated and is all pissy about things, even if they won. Such a great fucking character this guy has. But then he eventually accepts, and then we get a reconciliation moment from him and Claudio. So all of the remaining members from his team climb up the cage, plus Bryce Remsburg for some reason, And then all of them get their hands raised by Remsburg and each other. So they end the show like this. They end the show with Eddie and Claudio reconciling. They're now friends. I thought they were going to have a feud with each other, but yeah, all is well with this faction. So now, for the top 3 spots of the match. Number 3 is the Walls of Jericho on the tacks. Great moment that made me like cringe and be uncomfortable inside. And how Moxley sells this was just mwah. Number 2 spot in the match is the giant swing on Chris Jericho on the top, because this is just dangerous. It's like fucking shocking that they would actually try this. And yeah, it's a great visual. And then for the number 1 spot in the match, of course, it's not even a question. You don't even have to think about this because this doesn't happen anymore. It's when Kingston throws Sammy from the top of the cage to the timekeeper's table below. It's a lot better than when Jericho fell because you could see like the padding. But this one, it looks legit. And in the future, this is going to be one of AEW's most iconic spots. And it involves one of the pillars, Sammy Guevara. So yeah, so overall, for this whole show, I think this was very top heavy. The first half of the show was very average, like in totality. But this main event, that is half of the fucking show, fucking made it. What a great Dynamite, if only for the main event, mainly. We had some good matches, but this main event is pay-per-view main event quality. Like, it shouldn't be on a minor show. Even a special like Blood and Guts. This should have been on a pay-per-view. The Blood and Guts match itself was just fucking mayhem. It was carnage. It was everything that we were promised that it would be. And they managed to call back to WWE's past better than how WWE does it. Because shit, they went up the cage. And this doesn't happen anymore. So yeah, these are my match rankings. And AEW is just on fire right now. I hope this translates in the ratings. I'm gonna find that out later. So I might need to sleep first because it's like 12:41 here. So yeah, these are my match rankings. This might be the last video that I'll do in like a summary form. I might do like a shorter review for the next time. So yeah, that is my review of AEW Dynamite Blood and Guts. Now it's time for the TV ratings. So finally, after so many weeks, AEW has returned to 1 million viewers. They managed to get 1,023,000 viewers. This is up by 145,000 from last week, which was like about 876,000. For the males, they got a score of like 0.49, and for the females, 0.42. So they managed to do this with the first half being a bit meh. I mean, it was like an average Dynamite, worse than all of the previous weeks, in my opinion. And this whole thing was carried by the main event. So hopefully for the next few weeks, people stay for the more substantial and the more consequential storylines of the show. So that is it for this week's AEW Dynamite ratings and review. So like, comment, and subscribe for engagement. Share if you don't know me, and hit that bell notification for future videos. Watch my shit.